The world told you that after 60 your job is done. The world told you that you have earned the right to sit down, to rest, to step back, to let the younger people handle things, to enjoy your retirement, to take it easy, to stop. The world told you all of that, and the world was wrong. Your job is not done. Your job changed. And the new job, the one that started the day you turned 60, whether you applied for it or not, is the most important job you have ever held. More important than the career you retired from, more important than the role you played in your family for 30 years, more important than any title you ever carried on a business card. The new job is elder. Not old person, not retiree, not senior citizen. Elder. And elder is not a description of your age. It is a position, a rank, a responsibility that was placed on your shoulders by the simple fact that you survived long enough to carry it. And whether you accept it or not, whether you feel qualified or not, whether the modern world recognizes the position or not, the responsibility is yours. You are carrying it right now, even if you didn't know it until this moment. In my tradition, becoming an elder was not a birthday. It was a promotion. The community did not look at a person who turned 60 and say, "They are old now, let them rest." The community looked at that person and said, "They are ready now, ready for the highest work, ready for the most important contribution, ready to do the thing that only a person with 60 years of living behind them can do." And that thing was not labor. The young ones did the labor. The elders' work was different. The elders' work was invisible, weightless to the eye but heavy with consequence. The elders' work was to carry the memory of the people, to hold the lessons that the community had learned through generations of trial and error, and to make sure those lessons were delivered to the next generation before the elders' time was up. That was the job, not sitting in a chair, not watching the world go by, not collecting a check and waiting to die. The job was transmission, the passing of everything you know to the people who will need it after you are gone. My grandmother took this responsibility more seriously than she took anything else in her life, more seriously than her marriage, more seriously than her health, more seriously than her own comfort. She said, "I can afford to be uncomfortable. I cannot afford to die with my teachings still inside me." That sentence shaped everything she did after 60. Every conversation she had with a young person was deliberate. Every story she told had a lesson buried inside it. Every piece of advice she gave was chosen carefully, the way a person packing a small suitcase chooses only what is essential. She was packing. Her whole life after 60 was packing, putting the essential things into containers that could survive her death. The containers were her children, her grandchildren, me, anyone who would listen long enough to receive what she was carrying. And she carried a lot. Decades of observation, generations of inherited wisdom, mistakes she had witnessed and the corrections that followed. Patterns she had seen repeat across 50 years of watching human beings make the same errors and recover or not recover depending on whether someone older had warned them. She told me once that an elder who dies without passing down what they know is like a library that burns. Everything inside it, every book, every page, every sentence that was written by someone who lived and learned and suffered and survived, all of it turns to ash. And the ash cannot teach. The ash cannot warn. The ash cannot comfort the person who will need that exact sentence on the worst night of their life 10 years from now. The elder must speak before the fire comes. The elder must transfer the books before the library closes. And the library closes without notice. You do not get a warning. You do not get a final week to organize the shelves. The library closes when it closes. And whatever was still inside it at closing time is lost forever. I want to explain why the modern world does not understand this. Because the modern world redefined what old people are for. In the modern world, old people are defined by what they can no longer do. You can no longer work as fast. You can no longer lift as much. You can no longer keep up with the technology. You can no longer contribute to the economy in the way the economy measures contribution. And so the modern world looks at you and sees a person whose utility has expired. A retired machine. A tool that has been put back in the drawer. And because the modern world measures everything by productivity, a person who is no longer productive is a person who no longer has a role. That is the modern view. And it is completely, devastatingly wrong. My people saw it differently. My people saw the elder not as a person whose utility had expired, but as a person whose utility had finally matured. The young person is strong, but foolish. The middle person is capable, but distracted. The elder is no longer strong and no longer distracted. And that combination, the absence of physical power combined with the absence of worldly distraction, creates the perfect conditions for the highest form of contribution. The contribution of seeing clearly, the contribution of speaking truthfully, the contribution of sitting still long enough to notice what everyone else is too busy to see. The elder is the watchtower. The young ones are running through the field, working, building, planting, harvesting. They cannot see beyond the rows they are working in. But the elder, who is no longer in the field, who is sitting above it, can see the entire landscape, can see the storm coming before it arrives, can see the pattern that the workers inside the pattern cannot see. That seeing is not a lesser contribution. It is the highest contribution. And the modern world, which only values what happens inside the field, has forgotten that the watchtower is what keeps the field from being destroyed. I want you to hear this personally. You are a watchtower. You are sitting above a field that you worked in for 40 years, and you can see things from where you sit that the people still working cannot see. Patterns in relationships, patterns in behavior, patterns in the way the world repeats itself every 20 or 30 years while the young ones think everything happening to them is new. It is not new. You have seen it before. And your seeing is the thing the world needs most and values least. That imbalance, that gap between how much the world needs your seeing and how little it respects it, is the tragedy of the modern elder. You are sitting in the watchtower shouting warnings, and the field workers have their headphones in. But that does not relieve you of the duty. The duty exists regardless of whether the recipients are listening. You shout anyway. You warn anyway. You see anyway. Because the watchtower does not abandon its post just because the field workers are distracted. The watchtower stays. And eventually, when the storm arrives, and it always arrives, the field workers will look up, and you will be there, ready, having seen it coming for months. And the ones who finally listen will be the ones who survive. Before I share the next teaching, I need to tell you something. I am not going to be here forever, and most of what I know was never written anywhere, so I sat down and I wrote it. All of it. 20 teachings, 4 parts, in the order they were meant to be received. The ones about understanding the weight you carry and why it matters. The ones about fulfilling the duty that only you can fulfill. The ones I have never said on camera. It is called The Native Way, and it costs less than one dinner you will not remember. Scan the code on your screen or look in the comments, but do not leave yet. Because what I am about to share are the specific responsibilities that every elder carries, and the first one starts the moment you accept the position. The first responsibility of an elder is to tell the truth that nobody else will say. The young are afraid to say it because they don't have the authority. The middle-aged are afraid to say it because they have too much to lose. The elder has the authority and nothing to lose. And that combination, authority plus freedom, makes the elder the only person in the room who can say the thing that everyone is thinking, but nobody will speak. The family is falling apart, and everyone is pretending it isn't. The elder says it. The marriage is dying and both people are ignoring it. The elder says it. The child is headed down a road that leads nowhere good, and the parents are too close to see it. The elder sees it, and the elder says it. Not cruelly, not with judgment, with the calm, steady voice of a person who has seen this pattern before, who knows how it ends, and who cares enough about the people involved to risk being unpopular by telling the truth. My grandfather was this person in our community. People did not come to him for comfort. They came to him for truth. And sometimes the truth was comfortable, and sometimes it was not. But it was always accurate. He could look at a situation that had everyone confused and in 3 sentences identify the problem, name the cause, and suggest the direction. Not because he was smarter than everyone else, because he had seen more than everyone else. His experience was his credential, his years were his authority, and his willingness to say what nobody else would say was his gift. A gift that only works after 60. Because before 60, the truth-teller is dismissed as opinionated. After 60, the truth-teller is recognized as wise. The same words, different weight. The weight comes from the years behind them, and only an elder carries enough years for the truth to land with the force it deserves. The second responsibility of an elder is to model what a good ending looks like. This one is harder than it sounds, because the world is full of examples of bad endings, bitter endings, fearful endings, angry endings. People who reach their final years consumed by regret or resentment or the desperate clutching of a life they are afraid to release. Those endings are everywhere. What is rare, what is truly rare, is the elder who reaches the end with grace, who faces the final years not with terror, but with purpose, who demonstrates through the way they live every single day that the last chapter can be the best chapter. Not because the body is at its best, because the spirit is at its best, because the distractions have fallen away, because the performances have ended, because the only thing left is the truth of who you are, and the truth, if you have lived honestly, is beautiful. My grandmother modeled this. Every day of her last decade was a demonstration. She woke up with purpose. She spoke with intention. She moved through her days with a calmness that was not passivity, but mastery. She had mastered the art of being alive, not busy, alive, present to every moment, grateful for every morning, aware that each day was a gift that might not be repeated. And the people around her, the young people especially, watched. They watched the way she handled pain without complaining. They watched the way she handled loss without collapsing. They watched the way she handled the approaching end without fear. And what they saw became their blueprint, their model for how to do it when their time came. She was teaching them the most important lesson of all: how to age, how to decline, how to let go, how to die. Not with a lecture, with her life. Every elder who lives their final years with dignity is writing a manual that the next generation will read, whether the elder knows it or not. The young ones are watching. They are always watching. And what they see you do with your ending will shape how they handle theirs. I knew a man who did the opposite. He reached his final years angry, bitter about what the world owed him and didn't pay, resentful of every person who had wronged him, complaining about the government, complaining about his children, complaining about his body, complaining about the food, complaining about the weather. Every day was a catalogue of grievances, and his grandchildren watched. And what they learned from watching him was not how to age, it was how to fear aging. They saw their grandfather and they thought, I never want to become that. I never want to be that angry, that bitter, that consumed by what went wrong. And the man became a warning instead of a guide, a cautionary tale instead of a blueprint. And that is the tragedy of an elder who does not take the responsibility seriously. You become the model whether you choose to be or not. The only question is whether you model something worth following or something worth avoiding. And the choice is yours, every day. In every action, in every response to the pain and the loss and the indignity that aging brings. You can meet it with bitterness, or you can meet it with the quiet dignity of a person who has made peace with the fact that the body is temporary, but the lesson of how you carried it is permanent. The third responsibility of an elder is to forgive publicly. I do not mean make a show of forgiveness. I mean let the people around you see that you have released the things that once held you prisoner. Let your children see that the grudge you carried for 20 years is gone. Let your grandchildren see that the wound that shaped your middle years no longer controls your final ones. Because forgiveness demonstrated is more powerful than forgiveness taught. You can tell a child to forgive, but if the child watches you hold bitterness for decades, the child learns bitterness. The eyes overrule the ears every time. What the child sees you do is the lesson, not what the child hears you say. And an elder who carries visible forgiveness, who has clearly laid down the heavy things, who moves through the world unweighted by the past, that elder is teaching everyone around them the most valuable skill a human being can learn: how to let go, how to put down the stone, how to walk into the final years with hands that are empty and open and ready for whatever comes next, instead of clenched around a grievance that no longer matters. The fourth responsibility of an elder is the simplest and the one most often neglected. Be available, not busy, not scheduled, not distracted. Available. The young person who is struggling does not need your advice on a Tuesday at 2 o'clock between your other commitments. They need you to be reachable. They need to know that if they call, you will answer. If they knock, you will open. If they sit at your table, you will put down whatever you are holding and give them your full attention. Availability is the elder's most powerful tool. Not wisdom, not experience, availability. Because the wisdom and the experience are useless if nobody can access them. A library with no door is not a library. It is a warehouse. An elder who is too busy for the people around them has missed the entire point of the position. The position exists for one reason: to be there. Not to do, to be. To exist in a state of readiness, ready to listen, ready to speak, ready to hold, ready to witness, ready to receive the person who walks through the door carrying something they cannot carry alone. My grandmother's door was never locked. That was not a figure of speech. The physical door to her home was never locked. She said, an elder's door is always open because you never know which night someone will need to walk through it. And she was right. People came to her at all hours. Young mothers who were overwhelmed, young men who were lost, middle-aged women who were breaking, old friends who were grieving. They all came. And the door was always open, and the chair was always available, and the tea was always ready. Because my grandmother understood that her job was not to live her own life. Her job was to hold space for the lives of others. And holding space requires being there, consistently, reliably, without condition, the way the earth holds space for every seed that falls on it, without asking what kind of seed it is. without deciding whether the seed deserves to grow. Just holding, just being there, just being the ground. You are the ground now. That is your responsibility, not to produce, not to perform, not to achieve, to hold, to be the ground that the next generation plants itself in, to be the surface that catches the seed, to be the door that is always open, and the chair that is always ready, and the voice that says, "Come in, sit down, tell me everything." That is the elder's work. That is your work, and it is the most important work you will ever do. More important than anything you did for money, more important than anything you did for reputation. This work, the work of holding and teaching and demonstrating and forgiving and being available, this work is the work that will outlive you. Everything else you built will fade. The career will be forgotten, the money will be spent, the house will be sold. But the sentence you said to your grandchild on the night they needed it most will live inside them for the rest of their life, and they will say it to their grandchild. And the sentence will travel through generations the way my grandmother's sentences traveled through me and are traveling through you right now as you listen. That is the responsibility. That is the transmission. That is the job that never ends until the library closes. If what you heard today stayed with you, the book is there. The Native Way. 20 teachings, 100 pages, written the way I would speak to you if we were sitting together. Scan the QR code on the screen with your phone or find the link in the comments. Read one chapter. Sit with it. Now I want to hear from you. Tell me in the comments, what is the one thing you want to pass down before your time is up? I read every comment, and if this is the kind of conversation you have been looking for, subscribe to this channel. We are not collecting viewers here. We are collecting people who remember. Come back next week. I am not done teaching yet.